Welcome to the Freedom Frequency. I'm Laura. I'm a consciousness guide and multidimensional channel, pinpointing where your soul is inviting you to fully embody its passion and stretch into your boldest edge with grace, certainty, and unstoppable momentum.
And I'm Anna Jones, the Bliss Facilitator. I help entrepreneurs find freedom in all areas of their life so they can finally have a life that feels as good as it looks.
We created this podcast series to explore the invisible prisons we create and how to break free by tuning into the vibrations of limitless living, bold choices, and true freedom.
We're here to share the tools, stories, and mindsets that have helped us break free and create a life we truly love in hopes that they will serve you too.
To us, freedom isn't a goal, it's our natural state.
Join us on this journey of reclaiming and redefining freedom,
so you can turn up your frequency and step into your own definition of freedom.
Welcome to the Freedom Frequency.
Welcome to the Freedom Frequency, episode 6. Today we're talking about freedom of the mind, freedom from the mind. And one of the things we were just talking about was this concept of intrusive thoughts. And intrusive thoughts are a symptom, if you will, of OCD. And they can also come up just from anxiety and based on how it's defined in the mental health field. At the end of the day, though, it happens to everybody. This is not something that is diagnostic, that is wrong with you. And what do I mean by intrusive thoughts? Intrusive thoughts are when you're driving down the road and you're like, oh, what if I drove my car into a tree? Or, you're walking across a bridge and you're like, what if I just jumped right now? What if I just jumped? What if I smacked my kid? Just random intrusive thoughts that come into your head that are really disturbing and bother the fuck out of you, but truly don't mean anything at all. Really what these are random firing of neurons in your nervous system to discharge excess energy. That's all this is. And if that's how we could look at it and comprehend it, we wouldn't get into these big stories. Because the fact is, if you knew that over 95% of human beings had these intrusive thoughts that just pop into their mind randomly throughout the day, you wouldn't latch onto them and be like, what's wrong with me? What does this mean about me? Do I have to worry about me doing this? Then you wouldn't even, you just kind of shake it off and be like, whoo, okay, whoo, right? But what happens is we can latch onto these things. And if it's something that is patterned and it's coming up over and over and over and over again, okay, take some space and be with it, right? And just be like, okay, is there a purpose? Is there a message here that I'm missing, right? Otherwise, it's if you turn toward it and start to engage it and make it mean something about you, you're creating more of a problem than actually exists. And so we wanted to talk about this because obviously there's so many different ways that we can feel trapped by the mind. And this is one of them that we were just talking about. Do you have any thoughts on this, Anna, or other areas that you feel trapped by the mind?
So first of all, I just want to say that that if we could just summarize this whole episode, it would be in that phrase that you'd said, right? Intrusive thoughts. If you want the brain to know what the fuck is going on, you can tell it, oh, right now, I'm just having excess energy that wants to be let out. That's it. That's it. I feel when we have simple solutions to cut our story and fucking just let it go, remember that is it. I think that's what you should put in the, underneath. If you get anything out of this, always remember this, it is excess energy. So we were talking about this, right? And we'll obviously go more into the body in another episode. But if you are not moving the body, if you are not releasing the energy physically, right? Your brain will tell you, hey, we need to fucking release some shit. So it releases it in it will want to release it in any other way. So it's basically a cry for help, the way that I see it from my body of give me some movement, let me release this, whether it's through, screaming, crying, moving, jump, whatever it is, right? And so whatever way is the most attainable or the most, ready, readily available to you, I would say just go for it. Because we live in a world, and I think this happens a lot more in the US, where it's like everybody wants to be diagnosed with something. It's like there is something wrong with me, diagnose me so I can finally be at peace. Well, how about this? How about you stop looking to be diagnosed and actually just let yourself feel, let your like sit with yourself, be with yourself. What is going on? I always tell my clients, do you talk to your life? Do you talk to your body? Are you in constant communication with your creation? Because otherwise, how the fuck do you know what's going on? So I really think that this is very interesting, right? Because how can we feel free mentally when we are the ones that are that is keeping us, in imprisoned.
This is, you said so many brilliant things within that because one of the things you said, you know what this is about, Anna? This is about taking responsibility, right? This is about taking responsibility for, like you said, when you look at this as energy, how do you discharge energy? Is it through physical movement? Is it through being in nature? Is it through deep meditation? Is it through astral travel, right? And so there's so many different ways that we can discharge energy because everything here on this planet is energy, right? And I also really love that you brought forward this concept of creation because one of the things that I notice a ton is when people are spinning, especially around the same topic and they're just not getting somewhere, it's like that's because it's not for just you or it's not for you anymore, which means that it's somebody else's that you need to shed. But more importantly, it's usually something that you need to offer to other people or to the collective as service, whether that's just sharing your story, talking about what's going on with you, talking about what you desire and what you want to put out into the world or what you want to do that's fun and adventurous, right? And I think that allowing it to be something that moves through us rather than, like you said, keeping ourselves imprisoned within the mind is a choice. It is a choice. And so it doesn't feel like that when you're in that space because it feels so overwhelming. But that's because, like you brilliantly said as well, you're not willing to sit in the discomfort of that. It's a cry for help. Like, it's like parts work. I'm going to talk to the different parts of me. So it's like, okay, if your mind's really chatty, all right, if you're a toddler and you're in my field and you're really chatty, I'm not going to be like, shut the fuck up. Like, shut the fuck up, right? I'm going to say, and if you're going to say that, maybe we should have a conversation. But you're really going to be like, I love how excited this little Bubba is. I love how much energy this little Bubba wants to share and is needing to emit and is needing to put out there right now. Even if I'm not fully focused on the content of everything that's coming out of that child's mouth, just like we're not always focused on the content of everything that goes through our minds. We're kind of like sitting there and just witnessing it and just being in space and being like, yeah, just chat away. Go ahead and chat. Because here you understand it's not going to happen constantly. It is going to eventually die down if it has space to chat.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Again, I mean, I think we're just like going back and forth with all these like golden nuggets, and I shared this briefly with you while we were chatting before we got on here, but this just an example of what like the stories in our brains, right? There's this acquaintance that messaged me, and this person was like, Anna, I don't know if I should do this training. So basically, like 9 minutes of voice note, and like from like the first couple of minutes when I just heard like all the stories around why she couldn't do the training, around why she couldn't do this thing, and it's like I was really intrigued because I was like, this is just a story that she has created, and she has gathered so much evidence of like why she cannot have this training and all the reasons of why it will not benefit her. She may not, da, da, da. And this isn't a training that I'm offering. It's just a training that a friend is actually offering in her studio. And I told her, I was like, this person is coming from the other side of the world to your studio, and you've been denying this training for yourself for 3 years. I think that it's very clear that you have to take this training. And I told her, I was like, I asked this question to myself lately, and I'm like, if I were 80 years old, 80, 90, however you think old age is, And if somebody were to come up to me and ask, do you have any regrets? And if I were to say, like, my goal, quote unquote, is to obviously say, no, I don't have any regrets. I lived my life fully. I was in fullest expression and I did what I want. I was I lived my life in a way that felt that I was doing it with integrity and fun and excitement and whatever. But I said, if you can see yourself in that old age and that would come up, like that would be something that you regretted not doing, I think you have to do it, you know? So again, going back to that same like prison that she had already created, she was basically telling me like why she wasn't gonna do it, right? She was kind of asking for advice, but not really. And then I was just like, I don't hear one like quote unquote good reason of why you shouldn't do this. I just heard a story of fear, a story that you have created and you have bought into it for so many years that you've guilted yourself out of not wanting it. And so it's basically you're justifying like why you don't want it, why you shouldn't have it, and all these things. And so I think that when we start like when we actually don't witness the thoughts, right, which is something that we constantly talk about, just like be with it, witness it. You don't have to like dive into the thought and make it your reality and like consume it and let it consume you. You're not meant to be in relationship with your thoughts. You're meant to observe them and just witness them and see what it wants to unravel. Sometimes it can feel a little scary, which is like where we come in, right? A client of mine was saying like, this is why I want to hire you, because I know that I'm really good at what I do, but then like when my brain gets in the way, I reach out to you and like you can hold me and remind me that I'm coming from a very limited space, and then we can expand the possibilities, and I'm like, oh, I forgot, and then I move on. So this is really really beautiful to just bring forward and to acknowledge that the story that you are telling yourself, like whether you're watching this podcast or listening to it, it's like you can decide to release yourself from the story. It may feel impossible, but it's not.
And you brought up a really important point that we need to consider with this as well, which is that sometimes we need somebody else's perspective to be able to help us get out of that, right? Because, like, I want to ask you, what was it about your witnessing of this person's voice note that allowed you to see so clearly and swiftly into that, right? Because that happens to me too. I was just talking to somebody the other day. It was like literally, they said to me, holy crap, how fast you saw that. Like you saw right through to the like smallest point of my soul, the and most anchored point of my soul in an instant. And it's like, yeah, great. You do the same shit for me, right? And so it's like, yeah, I am very intuitive and I'm very in tune with those things and I can feel those things. That would be my answer, I think, if somebody asked me, how do you see that? Because I feel it, because I know who you are. I see your soul and I feel it, right? And sometimes we can't have that perspective with ourselves. And so I think coming into a space collaboratively with more than one person is where we are meant to be guided on this planet in human form. Like we're not meant to do it all on our own. And sometimes if you get lost in that sea in your head and you just can't tease apart, what's left from right, that's when somebody else's perspective can come in and be like, I see this so clearly for you, because you can just get lost in the sauce.
Yeah. Yeah. You said it very um just like very well put. And I'm having a little bit of challenge bringing words in today, but um I think you are very in tune and you are very open and you're very receptive, and also you're very discerning, like, and you know yourself very well. I think so. And you know what your capacity is beyond this realm almost. Like, I think that you're very connected, like ethereal wise, but also like you enjoy being grounded in
Mhm.
in that and in this experience as well. So I mean, there's for me, I think, when you ask the question like how does it come forward for me, it's like tale as old as fucking time, right? Like, I've used these stories before. I can recognize them because I used to fucking talk myself out of beautiful, expansive experiences because of like, oh, I don't have enough money. Oh, I'm not smart enough. I'm not creative enough. Like, who am I to do this? And it's like, who the fuck am I not to do this? Like, who the fuck am I not to do this? And I think that that really is like the message for every single person on this planet. It's like when you stop being who you really want to be, when you stop doing what you really want to do, you're actually doing a disservice to everyone out there because you are part of that ripple effect. I always tell my clients, I'm like, I'm Mexican, right? Even though I look white as fuck, I'm Mexican. And because of my heritage, because of the way that I speak, because of whatever, I have access to certain people. Now, my clients, they're different colored skin, different colored background, religion, culture, everything. They have access to people that I may not have access to, right? Because everyone is drawn to different people. So I am like, never for a fucking second think that this is like a small deed. Like it's so much bigger than you. Like when you're not being you, you're like breaking that ripple effect. And you're like I always yeah, it's like thinking bigger. It's not just about you. You're not just like keeping yourself imprisoned. It's like you're also not putting out your bat signal, which is what I've been telling my clients lately. I'm like, when I put out my bat signal, people know where to find me. People are like, I want to work with her. I want to hang out with her. I want to join her, her group. I want to do this. I want to do that. And it's like, and then we all inspire each other. We're all part of this ripple effect together, and we're just kind of ping ponging ideas and shares and experiences and all these things. And that's when we don't feel so alone. That's when we don't think like, oh my God, I should be crazy. I should be taking so many pills because my brain isn't right or I'm not okay. I feel, sad in the morning and then happy in the evening. It's like, if only you knew that that is normal. We're just living in a world that's not designed to sustain all of who we are. And, eventually there's something that I want to do with women because the world was not created for women, right? Like think about like the corporate world. Like women aren't supposed to be working all day every day. Like we have 1 week of our cycle where we are like extremely productive, extremely creative, extremely all of these things, and they sometimes overlap, but then when we're together we sync. And so imagine when a bunch of women are like synced in their periods and then super creative, super productive, super all these things, we can do what a man does in 1 week that they do in a month. So this is what I'm talking about, right? Like the possibilities, and also when we really accept like this is how we roll, this is how we are, this is how we be, as they say, right? And the more we are being and the more we are doing with this being, it just becomes this natural flow. There is no effort, there is no, it doesn't feel forced. And even when the rough times come, like with intrusive thoughts and whatever, you can just be like, I've been here before. I know how to navigate it. And then if another layer is being added into the story of the intrusiveness, then you have your coach, you have your community, you have your friends that you can just talk to and not have to give, explanations or feel like you have to some way compensate or extra validate, because you can just be and they get it.
Yeah, I really like this because what you're bringing in, it feels like to me, other than the societal piece, by the way, which is brilliant, because I think that's a big piece of what happens in our minds and how we can get spinny too, is this concept of also not personalizing what comes like we talked about, not creating meaning, but even if you do create meaning or your mind latches onto that, we are humans after all. We're going to have some kind of understanding when energy moves through our fields. It's like recognizing that every single person on this planet has a thought of a certain concept or a certain flavor that another person across the world is also having, right? Like I promise you, there isn't a thought that's gone through your mind that somebody else has not also thought, right? Like there's so many people on this planet, there's so many beings and energies in this universe. And so it's recognizing that you're never alone in some of this random shit that goes through your head or that gets stuck in your head. And one of the things that Anna and I were talking about earlier too was that sometimes some of these things come through, and this is similar to when we were saying it doesn't belong to us, that it's like, whoa, what's that? It keeps coming up. And actually, we're meant to understand and cultivate that energy, not for our own identity or self-understanding, as much as like you're meant to feel the texture of this because there's actually a client or somebody else that's coming along the way that's like right there at the gate that you don't even see is there. And they're going to hire you and they're going to get into your field and you're going to be like, holy shit, all that energy that came in was for her or was for him. And it's like I wouldn't have been able to help them with as embodied of an understanding from like a sensation in my body, an emotion that I felt when I processed that energy or when I was present with it, right? Because it's not something I may have experienced in my life before. And so sometimes these things can come in because you're actually meant to help somebody else, or you're actually meant to have perspective for somebody else who might be struggling with gaining perspective or looking to you to offer perspective. And it's something that, like, if they just showed up at your doorstep, you'd be like, I mean, I totally see you in this. I witness you in this, but I can't relate because I've never fucking been there. Like, I get it and I support you, but, and so I think that's what's really cool, but can send us reeling. And this is where trust comes in, is like, I trust that all these random mass energies that come into my field are here to like cultivate me because I'm here to be of service. And like,
Yeah.
whether that's going to help my world, like in my little microcosm here with me and my family and my loved ones, or my own identity, or it's meant to help the collective, or it's meant to help, a little, a human or a little nugget that's coming along my path that needs guidance. And so I think that's the piece that we sometimes don't think that far ahead. And we can get stuck, like Anna said, we get imprisoned in the mind of thinking like right now, this is what's spinning. And it's like broader perspective, think bigger. Like you said earlier, think bigger, right? Think bigger. What if this is coming through to be of service? In fact, what if we believe that everything that's coming through our fields is to be of service? Everything. And it's when it comes through and you're a little like taken aback or shocked, being like, okay, well, how is this serving through me right now? Because I know this is coming through as service.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Oof. Yeah. I was getting so many chills as you were speaking because I really do believe that I've just cultivated this belief that everything is always working out for me and that everything that comes into my field is for my benefit. And it's for the benefit of me breaking this prison that I was told that I had to live in this golden cage, if you will, right? Of like restriction and refraining. And that feels fucking scary, right? To want to break out of my own prison. And sometimes I feel like I've shared this with you many times and probably have shared it here. I don't know. But like there was at one point, I was like, I'm so scared of like being so free that I'll end up in a cult. Like that was always like my fear, right? Of like, that was the story that my brain was telling me to keep me inside this cage, right? You're going to end up in a cult and look at what happens to people in cults. They're like lost. They don't even know what the fuck they're doing. And then the reality is, I would never end up there. I'd probably create my own. Just kidding. No, but you know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't end up there because that's actually not freedom. That's a distorted perception or a narrative of what other people might find or might consider as freedom in that point coming from where they are. And so we've talked about, what freedom is to us and everything. And I think we're very much in alignment that it feels, when you're in integrity and when you're moving in the world with like this peace, but and groundedness and expansion and everything. It doesn't have to do with any of the limitations that we've been fed before, whether you're single, whether you're in partnership, whether you're whatever, like freedom is always available to you, right? Here and also here in the body.
Yeah, I really love that because when you talked about how scary it is to break out of the prison, that also speaks to the guilt you were talking about earlier, too, where we kind of guilt ourselves into a certain box. Why do we do that, right? Well, because if I'm breaking out of a prison in my mind or in my body that was created by a society that's accepted me, a family that has raised me, that loves me, that sees me, right? Then it almost feels like I'm in betrayal. And I'm like, yeah, well, I'm choosing this new way. I'm choosing this new path or this new community or this new way of being. And it almost feels like I'm defying what I've always known, not just what I've been taught, but like what's held me. And that's scary as fuck because it's like, dude, you were like holding me in the womb or you were holding me when I was a nugget or whatever. And that's where the nervous system can be like, wait. If you break out of this, are you going to be ostracized? Are you going to have access to the things that you had before? And so that's where we can use the mind to keep bringing us back to a focal point, a new focal point, a focal point that we have convictedly decided is the new way and is the new us and is the way that opens us and allows us to serve and support other people. So, yeah, this was really beautiful. Do you have any other thoughts before we close up today, Anna?
I was just, I mean, goosebumps all around, and just, I feel like I'm already like entering a new level of consciousness as we're, having this conversation. Um, but I believe that the loyalty thing is real. You know what you're saying also, and that's a lot. That's a big part of like why we choose to stay small and eat. You know what came up too, the loyalty of the struggle, the loyalty of like it has to be hard, I have to fight for it, it has to cost me, if it's not hard then it's not worth as much. It's like, how can we start changing the narrative around all of this? Because you can stand up for who you are, for what you believe, and you can act in integrity and not have to be in this struggle, not have to be in, constant debates and arguments and fights with other people. It's like, can we just come to terms that not every single person around us and that we're in relationship with is going to think exactly the way that we do? And if we are trying to convince them, or if we are trying to cancel them out because they are not thinking the way that we do, then we need to check in with ourselves and see where are we coming from, because that's not love, that's fear. And I think both you and I have realized that there are two ways that we come from in life. It's either love or fear. Where are you coming from?
I love that. And I will just leave us here with this concept of integrity that you just brought up. Because what I always say now is like, we choose to be in integrity to these decisions that we've made with other people, these contracts we've made in our lives. And we often choose that over our integrity to our own soul. And when we are in integrity to our own souls, it's always going to come from a place of love. It's always going to be rooted from that space when we come back to that. So that's a really good anchor point to continue to choose. And sometimes you need to discharge that energy first, like we talked about earlier, before you can settle enough to come into that integrity with soul. But that's our invitation to you today. And thank you so much for being here. Let us know if you have any thoughts or questions in the comments, and we'll see you on our next episode.